Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We're going to call this meeting to order. Our goal here this morning for the next little bit is to meet with Colleen, our grants administrator, discuss reporting requirements, Slurpee fund requests, SLFRF funds, hereinafter referred to as Slurpee by the chairman. We're going to discuss our latest requests and also would like to have some discussion on process and things going forward on this on how we have done it in the past versus how we are maybe do it in the future. So I'm going to start off by turning it over to Colleen and asking her to get the ball rolling.
Okay. Well, before I start, as this morning first thing, I did receive another request. So would you like to have that considered today or not? I mean, that's open to you. It was not in the packet pre-sent to you. I literally got it at 9 o'clock this weekend.
Well, I think you could share it. We may have to decide whether we want to pass it or table it until we have a chance to review it.
Update the
So
spreadsheet
this is an
accordingly.
updated one.
Mm-hmm. And it is the City of Mullen request. And so I've only had a chance to kind of briefly breeze through this, but I have had the conversations with them, so I know what they are requesting. Okay, so we will start with what was sent out previously, starting with the Pinehurst, just did them in alphabetical order, the Pinehurst Community Building. They previously received $35,000 for their roof repairs, and they have come back with additional information and another request of $100,000 to complete those repairs as outlined in their request.
Now, is that $100,000 in addition to the 35?
That was the impression I got from this, that the new amount for $100,000 with the other 35 and what they've raised to be $50,000, so a total of what they have in their pot of $150,000. And the request was on the first page, $100,090 for housing and $110,000 for feet.
And there's only one bid?
Yes.
That's all we can get so far. Nobody else, we have trouble getting people to give us bids.
I've actually gotten two bids there, well, two complete bids. The third bid hasn't been completed because two of the companies that I was talking with are roofing companies who hire, contractors to build as well. And the roof on one of our buildings, quite honestly, is pretty much falling in. It was built probably in the 30s for employee housing at Bunker Hill. Moved out to Pinehurst, and it's in sad shape, to say the least. So it's going to take a complete rebuild. It's also a 212 pitch roof that ties in with a 412 pitch, which I can't even put composition roofing on this flat roof because it's just too flat to shed water the way it needs to, and snow, which we seem to have an abundance of around here. So in order to rebuild that roof to bring it up to the other roof, the cost has gone from strictly a re-roofing job to a roofing and construction job. And we have been trying to hold fundraisers for the last 4 years, and I think we've managed to accumulate about $5,000 in fundraising for a roof reconstruction or repair. And the truth of the matter is the actual bid I got for the latest bid I got that's more complete totaled out to $139,000.
And it's in your packet.
And I know that's shooting for the moon here, but we're not, I don't have enough years in my life to keep doing fundraisers for this roof at the rate the money keeps rolling.
And they're leaking, the
And,
walls are leaking in the kitchen, so we have to replace all those walls. We also have to do insulation in all those. We've had a guy come out from Avista and look at all of the energy upgrades, and we're gonna get a grant from them for around $10,000, so that's.
We won't get a grant, we'll get a bill from them.
A bill from them.
Yeah.
For about $10,000. They will give us a little bit of rebate on some of that stuff that's energy efficient. And so we just keep finding additional
Expenses.
expenses that are compromising the integrity of the building.
So just so you so you commissioners know, pardon me.
That's all right.
We serve, well, we have a list of the different agencies that take advantage of the use of our building. And it would displace pretty much everybody on the
Pretty
west
much
end
the
of the
only
valley. I
community
even get
building
people from the east end
vendors.
calling to use the building because
What was
there aren't facilities available in this area to rent for parties, whatever, memorials, that sort of thing. Although we don't charge for memorial use, celebrations of life, funeral celebrations, we don't charge for anything like that. That's a gift from us back to the community.
Or anything that's nonprofit. So like the Fuller Center meets there, and they don't charge us for that.
Boy Scouts are there.
And voting, you don't get anything for that, do you?
They do a small,
I'm sorry?
Small stipend?
for your polling
For
place,
the
for the
polling
county.
place,
They do, they pay us $50 per use,
$50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not much.
which, what the heck, it's still a service to the community, and it's very convenient for a lot of the people in that town. I mean, it is a bedroom community with a lot of retired people in it.
Your only community center, basically.
Right. And the other thing is on our, you guys see our monthly breakfast, which we're having this Saturday, by the way, and y'all are invited.
Not this Saturday. I lied, it is this Saturday, God forgive me. She knows I don't.
Anyways, and those, like this Saturday will go towards the roof, but every month we have a different breakfast.
Cancer Support Society,
And it supports those two.
the 8th grade is going to have a request for a breakfast fundraiser for them. This just goes on all year long. We use it for 6 or 8 different groups that come forward looking to use the building. It's a well-used structure.
So we can't do every breakfast meeting. My point is, we can't do every breakfast meeting to raise funds for the roof because we have other things in the community that we're raising money for. So that's why, if you ask why we can't raise more money.
So I'm just trying to read through the bids. So you've got the $35,000 grant, and Colleen has explained to them, right, they have to do this and then submit for reimbursement.
It is a reimbursement, yes.
So do you have a way of covering the expenses while you submit for reimbursement?
Mm-hmm.
We do.
I'm a banker. Of course we do.
That's the story she keeps giving us.
So you said you had 2 other bids.
I do,
Are they about the same or?
Well, they're just for the roof.
They
only.
don't detail as much stuff. I should say stuff that way. This is a proposal from Always Roofing and Siding, for the roofing only. I apologize for the band. And then they're partnered up with this gentleman here at Weston Homes. And then this is a bid from Bryce Roofing, Darren Frank, for the roofing only, which is fairly similar in cost to the Always bid for roofing.
Okay, so you have 3 roofing bids.
Yeah, they're all fairly similar in cost.
And they're all based on the reconstruction, not just the.
No, it's
Those
just the
ones
roofing.
aren't?
These 2 are not. That other one from
Okay.
Angus is based on the reconstruction. This is actually, the second part of this is the reconstruction, but it doesn't have the detail in it that Angus does. Angus is doing a bunch of interior work on his bid as well.
Okay, so the total was 43,000?
For him alone.
For
You
him
couple
alone.
that with this one here for Always, and it comes out to 71 something. 71,250 or something like that. But there again, if you look at the bottom of the bid from this gentleman, it says 10 days from date of bid. And then that kind of throws it out the window. So in other words, what that means is he'll have to go back in and check all his prices and everything else, see if it's gonna work.
So right now, the cost just to do the roofing is about 70 something still? If it was just the roof, is that?
No, the actual cost for the roofing is gonna be around $28,000, 28,000 bucks, something like that, for roofing alone.
Roofing alone.
But that's with composition roof. If I put metal on there, that adds another third to the cost of that.
And you got a grant before, right, for $35,000?
Well, the city of Pinehurst, agreed, yeah, from the commissioners, the previous commissioners agreed to give us 35,000.
And what was it, and what that go towards?
The same thing, same
The
stuff.
It was, yeah.
So our original bid was for 70,000 because that's what we had the bids for several years ago when we did this was about 71,000. So that's where we started at. And then as Gary got these additional bids, they went in there and found out that there's more to, other than just roofing it. There's it's leaked so bad that the water's leaked down into the walls, and so some of the walls are having to be replaced because there's so much water damage there. So
Yeah.
really, it's like putting, if we just do roofing alone, it's like putting a Band-Aid, you know, on a deep cut. It's just not gonna.
And roofing costs have gone up exponentially and not come back down. Now, building materials, lumber, sheeting, that sort of thing, has been on a kind of a roller coaster ride, and right now it's not up that high. So that's actually a bonus. But the trust companies honestly have not come down that much, from when it was at the peak height after all the hurricanes hit the East Coast, 3 years ago or so, when everything went sky high. The trust companies haven't dipped back down that low, so they're fairly expensive to replace trusses, or to put trusses on that, roof, to match it up with the old one. So, you know,
And then we need insulation to be put up in there, cause that's all, with the water leaks and stuff, that's all deteriorated.
well, and I don't know what's in those places, I really don't. They're old bunker housing, and I'm sure that, they just moved them out there. Actually, about 4 o'clock one Sunday morning, they decided to load that thing up and sneak it down the road and get it to Pinehurst, and it worked.
And
We got it
Tracy,
there.
this was back before you and I were born.
I'm just adding it up. If you add up senior meals, voting, church lines, everything, there's a couple, 3,000 people a year using that building.
Oh, at least.
Yeah, okay.
And that's on the real regular basis, that isn't the ancillary use that we get.
No. Colleen, I'm not sure how you did these in the past. Did you present and vote as you went, or did you look at them all and then vote?
Kind of depended on how you wanted to do it. There was both, looking at all of them and doing the comparisons. I think because we are, just my opinion, because we have 216,000 requested and 177 available, I feel it's a good idea to go through all of them and then feel out what you think is the best use of this funding, unless you add the last one, and then we have 316,000 requests for 177,000.
My question is, do we have to have 3 bids?
It depends on how this comes together. My understanding, if it's 50,000 or less, you do not have to, but because this is coming in at the 139,000, then we would have to. They would have to, because we're not the
So
project
get the rest of
manager,
that bid from, the other one that was going to bid on the construction part for Bryce Roofing was, Cosmo Construction. I don't know if you're
If you
familiar
can
with it, they've been around for a
Get
while.
those other bids, like,
Finish it up, get the bid.
finish up and get the other bids, cause that's one of the requirements that we have, is we need to have 3 bids.
Okay. Okay.
If it's all right with you two, I would like to discuss all 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we could come back and make a motion on each one.
Okay.
Like you said, either to get more bids or to table it for a week while we get more bids, or whatever we do. Is that all right?
So
with
help
you?
me
Yeah.
that sounds good
So
to
you
me,
get
but
more
I do have
comparison.
another question. You've raised 50,000
Mhm.
towards it, and then we granted 35,000 previously, so that's 85.
No.
That's the 50,000
That
is
is included in
included
the
the 35,
50,000.
so it's the 35 from the
Oh,
previous.
okay, that
They raised 15.
It-
plus
yeah,
the
raised
35.
Cause
50.
Pinehurst
Okay.
has given us, we went to the Pinehurst and got 10 from them.
10, that's right, sorry.
Okay,
10, not
okay.
Sorry, I'm in a timeout there. This is not a grant. Very specific, it's not a grant. There's a whole different set of rules that come up with grant funding. This is contributions to our community organizations due to the COVID impact, so it's not grant funds.
Yep.
Let me ask you, is this grant appear to be eligible under the treasury regulations?
It's a support of a nonprofit organization. All nonprofits were negatively impacted by COVID.
So you've already done that analysis that it is in support? Okay. Are there any other questions about this grant? Then I recommend we discuss the other 3 or 4, depending which list you're looking at, 4, and then come back and take action on each one. Okay, so, do you have any other comments at this point before we come, and we'll come back to this in a
Yeah,
minute?
that's fine.
Okay. All right, next on the list.
The next request for funds is from the Shoshone County Sportsmen's Association. And they had requested funding previously, predominantly for the structures out there, because they do have resident families that take care of it. This one, they rethought their proposal and what they really wanted to ask for based on the purpose of awarding these funds to community organizations. And so because of what they do with the fish hatchery out there, and that they stock all of the ponds, they contribute to all of the family fishing ponds. They stock 2 or 3 of the lakes up here. So they're the predominant one that get the fishing out there for our residents as well as tourism. So that's where their request is broken into 2 pieces. The 20,000 is to get the water lines so that their fish ponds are functioning at full capacity, and they can continue to stock all of our ponds as expected. And then the 15,000 is for windows and paint and different things on the building. So that's why they broke it down into the 2 pieces.
One of the problems I see is there's no bid from anybody. It's all in writing, and I would like to see, what contractor they're gonna use. We need just at least one bid of what the cost is from a contractor.
Were they thinking of doing this work themselves?
They could. There's a lot going around on what they could possibly do with this. So they potentially have the possibility. They just needed to know if they could go forward with them. Because, bidding is time sensitive. So if they were allocated the funding, if they were
Well,
approved
what
for
we
funding,
need is
then
at
they could
least
do it.
like how much it costs per window and per door, things like that. That's,
Okay.
Can they, do something, how they
if they
came
could
up with
just
that
kind of,
figure.
how they come up with that figure, that would be great.
So
Okay.
let me get clarity here. I think Jeff's talking like we would see the bids before we approve the grant. I think I hear you saying if we approve the grant, they would go out and get the bids. So either way, we would have the bids before we worked, but those are, the way we've been doing it is they've been getting the bids after the grant was approved, and what you're suggesting is more like what
Request.
Kootenai does.
Request, please, please, forgive me for, it's a request for funding. Granting creates a whole different set of rules and guidelines and
get the
things we have to do,
bid
so it's not a grant.
I grant you that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I personally would like to see the expense of
Broken down.
And to see where they come up with that amount of money, cause if they do, undershoot it, then we'll have more money later, but that's besides the point. It'd be kinda nice to see exactly what they're.
Yeah, if they're including backhoe work or just the pipe or,
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying. So what we may be looking at is a change in procedure a little bit, and that we wanna start telling applicants that we need 3 bids if it's over 50,000, and we wanna see at least a budget and a bid if they're under, or we need an explanation like I've talked to Zach, it may be that he's planning on doing some of this himself with that, and we just need to know probably that kind of detail.
And itemization of what.
Flags. Or pin whip.
Pause for a moment.
Dave, you scared her.
We will be in recess for a moment while we wait on the
Put
clerk's
that
ink
there.
pen.
Yeah, got one all over.
We are back out of
My
recess.
pen ran out, sorry. Can't take minutes without a pen.
I
Okay.
thought it maybe was government break or something.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm almost
Every
done.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
We thought she learned it at the bank.
Good enough.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments about that grant? Does the county, Colleen, do you ever do any kind of a official county summary of these grants? Or is the summary what we get in writing from them?
What do you mean by summary?
Like, well, I've been reading through what Kootenai does, so it looks like before the commissioners get it, the county has assembled a summary of each project so that they can compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Is this our summary, is what the, okay.
Yeah, and the reason, potentially the reason for Kootenai is because they had over the $10 million. And so they have a much stricter, narrower field of how they can use those funds. I believe they may have accepted the $10 million standard allocation, which does free up a certain amount of those. But they created a task force
Right.
aside from all of that. And so they're doing a whole different, I mean, they have rubrics and they go through the whole 9 yards, a whole different way than what we have even capacity to do here for these. So the summary is, yeah, and that's why the request form was kept fairly simple, is it was an introduction. It was a way to get into what projects are out there in the community to be considered, and then dig deeper into, after it was presented to you, to find out what really does need to be. At the end of last year, I did present on how many nonprofits and, you know, all of that was included on the demographics of what the requests for funding had gone towards. And it is predominantly C3 nonprofit organizations.
And do you verify their C3 or their, you do, okay.
I do.
All right. Well, I agree what happens in Kootenai is a much more complex process. I've been studying it with help because I think in my mind, where I'm headed with the other commissioners, is that maybe we wanna see I would like to see a little more consistent comparative criteria. Not that we would adopt all of Kootenai's process, but there might be some parts that we wanna steal from them. Because when I read this last night, I got thinking, I don't know whether I could approve that or not. There's no breakdown of the expenses. I've talked to Zach, I have a rough idea what he's thinking, but if I hadn't talked to him, I would have been in the dark. So, all right, are there any other questions on the sportsman at this point? We won't take action yet, we'll just ask if any more
Right.
questions of Colleen, since there's nobody else here to speak for that
Like a
one.
better breakdown like we asked for
A breakdown.
what he's looking at.
A breakdown and
Material expenses.
a bid if he's looking at having it done, or some statement that they're doing, the sportsmen are doing it themselves, or, and he might be. Any other comments on that one yet, at this point?
No.
Okay. Colleen, would you continue on?
Okay, next one in line is for the Shoshone Medical Center Foundation. They are working towards 4 defibrillators for the hospital. They have asked for support on 2 of those, and they have been fundraising for the others. So that is the request to help with, and it fits into the health category. They just put medical under other, but it supports our hospital. So that's what their request is for.
And have they been given a grant yet?
They have not.
Okay.
No, that's a priority, I would.
So this would purchase 2 defibrillators.
Correct.
2 out of the 4, I believe, that their goal is
And
to obtain.
Again, you know, I would like to see at least a bill, you know, I understand, you know, this is in writing, and whoever it's from, I would still like to see a bill of supporting this 20,500, whether it be a copy of something on the internet or whatever they're doing, which will give me a better, you know,
Yeah, something simple
Based on
like that,
writing,
even
it's
just
just-
there, here's the online, a copy of the thing online on what defibrillators cost and that, so that so we don't come back with any surprises or anything. I'm sure it's all in order, I just think it'd be nice, and I think that's more of a process thing where maybe I'm coaching, encouraging that we would collect a little more. Not that you didn't have enough to do already, just getting your major journey today, so.
It was an adventure.
I thought about you, cause I almost went down on the four-way stop over here.
Is there cameras to see that?
Any other comments or questions about the defibrillator request for funds? Okay, what's next on the list?
The cat wranglers. So I'm allergic, I sneeze, so sorry. The Silver Valley Cat Wranglers are requesting, support of what they do, and they are a C3. What their request falls under is, of course, they have the economic impact, but they support a lot of low income and elderly people in the community with helping with their cats, whether it's getting them the companions or making sure that they're spayed, neutered, vaccinated. So their request is to support their lack of donations over the last several years.
Do they have a budget or anything that we can see how much a year they actually spend on helping other people with their cats?
I'm sure they do. I mean, as a C3, they would have like their 990s, and I'm sure they do something. I don't know if they do postcards or if they do the.
It'd be something to say, right now we spend X dollars a year helping people with their cats, and with this we would spend, is this all to be spent in 1 year? Is this, what? I think that's what hit me when I read through it last night. They have a little bit of my money because we've gotten some cats there. Good organization. But I was wondering, what are they already doing and how much more this would help them do? I think would be helpful for my sake.
I would agree.
Questions for anybody else?
No, that was my
Same one.
suggestion. Yeah,
I
that's
stole
a
your
good.
question.
Just hold it
I stole
in.
your question. Sorry.
I like you talking better. So.
Yeah, put my foot in my mouth. So I think it would be helpful to see some sort of a budget from the past and a budget for the future on what difference this would make.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience.
Thanks for right.
Thanks for granting me your patience. It's not a grant. Okay. What's next?
So the last is, if you wanted to consider it, the one from the city of Mullen. They have not requested funding previously. What they are looking at, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to really pour through this, but I know that it does fit into this just in conversations with Phil and Michelle and, oh man, names, why is her Trisha? At the city, and so this is to fix the stairs on the morning club. That is, again, it's the community center, the library, their gathering place. They do receive funding for that, but it's in pretty serious disrepair. So that's where they're looking at. They have requested $100,000.
Probably the same thing on that as some bids or.
Yeah.
That is $100,000, so that would need to be.
Okay, now just a question on that. Did the cities receive the same funds that we did, but in a lower amount, or did we receive it all and then we delegated out?
They're any use, so, the cities all received a certain amount.
Okay.
I could not speak right now until I get back to my computer what Mullen may have received. All of those funds would have been received in 2021, and in conversations with the cities, most all of them had spent it because it was smaller amounts on a lot of their infrastructure that they were needing. Talking to Wallace, doing they were talking about manhole covers or shoring up the South Hill and different projects like that they needed infrastructure that they didn't have the capacity for.
Did you all apply for Pinehurst for any, or did?
That's where we got the 10,000.
That's the 10.
Yeah, and I know that because I was at the meeting, that they're spending a lot of their money on the floodplain they had some engineers there talking about the floodplain that was coming through Pinehurst, with the dike and stuff, so that's where a lot of their money went.
Now, what about the money that, we're supposed to receive another chunk next December? Is,
That's
not-
only county.
that's only
Yeah.
county, okay, that answers my
December.
question. So they just
It's
received the first
sometime
amount
during
that we
FY
did.
'23, there is no definitive date, it just says, here's your
Okay.
first chunk, and you'll get it sometime in the next year.
Maybe.
In theory.
Okay.
So I think, we're all probably saying that we would wanna see bids. All right, is that a fair statement? We wanna see bids for what they're wanting to do with the money, so that we could, compare it to the other requests fairly and consistently. And because they'd be required to have bids anyway. I don't, is it a fair assumption to say, Jeff, based on what I've heard you saying, that we'd probably like to see our bids at this stage in the proposal and not after the fact, after they've been granted the?
I would agree to that, just
Does
so
that,
we can go.
does that make sense to you, or are you?
It makes
okay
it a little
with
easier,
that?
especially when we're looking at the request.
So it's, I realize that might be a change of procedure, but asking people to get the bids so that we are, my concern with the old system is, I could tell you I need 300,000, you give it to me, I go get the bids, and I could coax them on up there if I really wanted to and get a little extra, whereas if I show you the bids and you give me the bid, we all know exactly what work is being done. It might help the funds go farther, in my mind. Not the grant funds, by the way, the funds,
Mhm.
yes.
Right. So just kind of a background on that, the reason was that because, especially nonprofits, and when this all started, it was intended for trying to get those organizations that needed the most funding and have the least capacity. And so trying to make the process easy. And then it was a reevaluated, so I'm at a stage now where, and this kind of reflects it here on the bottom of it, where I've gone back through what's expensed, what is intended, and set aside funding. But that's where it was more than the 164 that we had, because I've gone back through and reevaluated. So now we're at a point this year where I'm reaching out to construction starting. So these others that are in process but not completed, we'll be going back through and saying, is your bid the same? Because that's part of the problem, is all of these numbers are a fluid number, and my concern is if they have to pay. So like with Mountain Valley Cascadia, when they were looking at the windows, they had to pay somebody to come from Coeur d'Alene. They could not get any other bids, and when they did reach out to other window companies in Coeur d'Alene, they said, you'll have to pay us, and I guarantee you it'll change in 30 days. So by the time it got in here, was approved and back out, it would cost them money, and they may or may not have received that funding for a bid that was going to change. So there was just that circular motion of how prices continually change. And the backup and giving budgets, I completely agree with that. And my concern is if some of these organizations have to pay for any kind of bid to get those 3 bids, it could be a financial hardship.
Well, I think we could discuss that if it came up, but as a general principle, I mean, I don't think we even have a choice over 50,000 anyway. But
No, at the end process, no, absolutely. Now, approving that, yes, you can spend it on a reimbursement, that's up to you guys how you wanna do that, and that's fine, we can certainly do that, but the end product does have to have those for the 3 bids over.
And my big concern is just making the money go as far as we can make it go, same as you, you know.
I have a question, Colleen, on that. So when you're having the work done and you have the contractor, let's say he's getting materials first, and then can he submit a bill for that, and we pay that, and then we can submit for reimbursement? Or does he have to do the whole thing before we can submit for reimbursement?
Progress billing is okay, as
Okay.
long as it, fits in the parameters. Cause there's an understanding that a lot of contractors want that materials up front.
And that's the other thing, is Gary's had several people that say they're gonna come out and give a bid, but he's had like 3 or 4 no-shows. So getting a bid, particularly for both parts of it, is difficult because not very many people do the roofing and then do the other stuff well with it. So you have to have kind of 2 people
Aren't there some exclusions, if you can't get 3 bids
Mhm.
in your geographical area, aren't there some other?
There's the sole sourcing, whether it's because you could not or because there is not
Nobody will serve
competitive
your-
in it. If there was reasonable effort to get those 3 bids and it was deemed
They could at least
unable
come up
to,
with a
you can
contact
do
phone
that.
number or something.
Yeah. I mean,
We'll get to public comment.
we're trying to keep it within the, trying to keep it within the community
Listen,
to
she
help
do.
Mhm.
support the community people.
Mhm.
But I guess if we need to have some people from Coeur d'Alene come over, we could certainly do that.
Okay. Well,
We'll get what we can.
And Shoshone County does have in theirs that they prefer to support local as much as possible, so. And that is in the federal ones, they say we wanna support local.
And it's in the federal as well?
In the Shoshone County federal rules or federal procurement policies.
A question on the Cascadia one, why didn't they use Shoshone glass?
That was who their bid was from. And that was a concern, is because it was higher.
Okay.
And they couldn't get people from, going back and
Okay.
forth with Emily,
Yeah,
they
forgot.
tried to reach
Okay.
out to Coeur d'Alene and Spokane, and they, Ira went out even, and they couldn't get anybody to respond.
well, if we have no more questions, then I think we should go back over these and decide if we're taking what our action is, whether our action is no action or asking for more information, et cetera. Any further questions on any of these 5?
No, I don't.
Any further questions from you?
I'm
Okay.
good at waiting for the additional material to come in.
So, I guess if we could take them one at a time in whatever order Colleen's got there, what would the
You can
first
just go
one?
straight down the list from, on your sheet here.
City of Mullen is first on this list, is that correct?
Yep, either one you want to use, since you added the city of Mullen, it's just an alphabetical order on there.
Okay. For the City of Mullen, do we wanna take action, do we wanna table, do we wanna request further information? And we've already had some discussion about that we would like to see 3 bids because of the cost of the money that they're spending.
Yep.
Detailed bids, I think, would be helpful, and so that we know that how much work they're getting done for it, kind of a thing, rather than just bottom line. More like what the Lions submitted here today, I think that one that showed line item was very helpful, so. Okay, is there any other action that we would request from them?
I don't think so.
Okay, entertain a motion to, would be appropriate to table it until the information is available?
I think so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to table the City of Mullen for more information.
I'll second it.
Tabled until we can get the rest of the information. Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, so we will just table that until we can get the rest of the information. The next one was the Pinehurst Community Building on this list. If I heard the board correctly, what we're asking is if they could get that 3rd bid or show us or bring us the email or whatever saying we did everything we could and nobody else will bid, but do what you can for that, and then we would take action on it. Okay? And we do appreciate you actually taking time to be here today and answer questions.
I've been watching you guys on TV.
We do autographs on the.
You're very
after the meetings.
photogenic, by the way.
Yeah.
Photogenic, that's not what his brother said, but, all right. Is there anything else that we would request of the Lions other than the 3rd bid?
No.
For the Pinehurst Community Building? All right, so I would entertain a motion to table that until they can present that 3rd bid, or they give up and present that they've tried.
Okay. A motion to table it until we get the 3rd bid.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries to wait until they get the rest of the information.
Question on that, so there's the one included in this, and you said the 3rd bid, so is that with this documentation?
Well, he's got another part of that bid that you're
We'll
gonna
put
get,
all
right?
those together for
Yeah,
you,
they'll
so
gotta
it
bring us
makes a
back
lot more
first.
sense. So
Okay,
if you just wanna
perfect.
give us that,
So we'll get them in, so
Awesome.
that we have 3
Yeah.
to look at,
Yeah, we'll get them together.
Okay, thank you.
and I appreciate
Good
it.
idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sportsman's Association, if I heard the board correctly, we wanted to see a a budget and a line item budget and or bids if there, or explanation of who's doing the work.
Yeah.
Or,
A breakdown.
yeah, line item breakdown.
If he's
of-
doing himself materials, costs, and,
Materials.
yeah, yeah.
Breakdown. So is that clear for you?
On table.
Cause I know you're the one carrying the information on to them.
Mhm.
Okay, entertain a motion to table it until we get that information.
I'll make a motion to table that for additional information.
Motion made,
I'll second it.
seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries to wait until we have more information from them. Shoshone Medical Center Foundation, if I understood the board, what we just wanted to see was, something that shows us what the cost, not that we don't trust or anything, that just
No.
to verify that we're treating everybody the same, they gotta show bids or show costs, so we want something that shows the cost of the devices on the current market value. Is there anything else that we would want from them?
No, that's a priority, but
Okay.
we'll table it for the bids.
Motion to table it until we can get the
Yes,
pricing.
because they have.
I'll make a motion to table that until we get the pricing on the
I'll second
defibrillators.
it.
Second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
so that motion carries, that we just want to get the pricing information. We're kinda- I think being more consistent and comparative here and asking everybody to provide some of the same sorts of things, which may inform you as we take on more applications too, that I think it would be helpful from my perspective. The last one was the Silver Valley Cat Wranglers. We've heard from the board that we would want to see a budget and how this, introducing this new money into the budget, what that would allow them to do for the community, and what are they spending now and what would they be spending in the future? Is there anything else you would want from the Cat Wranglers?
That sounds fair to me.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Okay, would entertain a motion to hold it until we get that additional information?
I'll motion to hold, to table it until we get that information.
Till we get a budget? Okay,
A second.
seconded, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries to just table and ask them for the additional support information. Okay, and it convey to everybody that we're absolutely not saying no, we just want, same thing from everybody, we just want more detailed information. Okay? Now, I have a question for you on a grant that came up in a request from Mindy Beaner. She mentioned that it's come up in some other minutes and other meetings, that there was a grant given to the Crisis Center and that it never really got voted on, and she sent me the minutes and I listened and I agree, but I can't find it on the list of grants anyway. So where is the Crisis Center?
It's abbreviated. I had to ask too.
SCCRC.
Where is the
SCCRC,
SCCRC?
It's in the west.
in the
Okay.
midway.
All right, that they were granted $47,000 and that was already approved, but that there was a technicality, and do you have any information on that, on what she's talking about in that letter? That if I understand it right, she's saying that it's been recorded that it was approved, but there was no actual vote of the board.
They said maybe 3 words in the meeting about it, and that was it.
So there
They
was
never
not,
voted on it.
and I listened to the tape,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's no actual action on that one, so, but it's already been approved in the minutes,
That was one of the final bills we paid just not long ago.
and it's already been paid,
January 25th.
okay?
Yeah, and we
So it's already been,
did initial improve and one our prepays.
okay, so would we like to take the technicality of going ahead and reapproving that, since it
Yep.
does not appear to show up in the minutes?
I'll make a motion that our crisis center SCCRC was approved for the $47,000.
We're reaffirming that.
Reaffirming, yeah.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, so there's no question about it now, it's in the minutes that we did that, thank you. This money that we're talking about, is this the same pot of money that you and I talked about if we wanted to do some kind of a grant set aside for NACO or for county?
You
Is that-
could, but the better use is the LATCF,
Okay,
county only, the 8 million ones.
And how much is left of that one? 17, okay. And so we need to discuss that in a future meeting too, I think.
Okay.
Whether we wanna have, you know, what things we might wanna set that aside for the county. But this is the stuff that the Slurpee is the one that's going to the nonprofits in the community, right? Okay. All right. Is there any other action or comment from the board before I open it up to the public? I will say thank you, Colleen, for all the work.
Thanks, Colleen.
Colleen, it's appreciated. All right, then I'm gonna open it up, go around. Mr. Beaner, any comment?
Yes. Respectfully, I'd like to say that it wasn't a technicality. There was no, they didn't even discuss it. It was a completely screwed up mess. The second part, I'm glad you guys are cleaning this up. I'm real happy it's finally starting to get cleaned up. But one of the things I wanna bring up is the sheriff's office came to you guys for the Guardian stuff for the, jail. They were only gonna spend 45 or 47,000, which keeps you under the $50,000. But it was approved for 55 or 57, and they were gonna keep the extra 10,000. Well, that puts you over the $50,000 for bidding. And to me, it was approved for, they want 45, that's all they get. The money comes back to the county, gets put back in this grant, so it goes someplace else. It doesn't end up in a budget someplace. So that was my comment.
Is that the way it's gonna go?
No.
Colleen?
Again, it's a reimbursement. It has to be paid off of an invoice only, and it's only a set aside. So again, as each one of those come through, then it's evaluated on what is that expense. If it is over, they've all been sent the procurement rules, so they understand they have to go
So
through
we'll
those
get
processes.
the 5,000 back if it was 45?
It never leaves a fund. There is a specific fund
Right.
that has,
Okay.
because again, it just like the SLFRF, it is overseen by Treasury and it has its own reporting that's due at the end of March. So it has to be accounted for every penny on my side. I mean, they're not as big a deal, but I have to have those backup documentations of where it went and how were those procedures done. So that money stays in that fund. It doesn't ever leave. It doesn't go into any other budgets. It stays
Okay.
only in that
So it's
fund.
all-
of
So it's his
Only
question,
paid out
they're
what
only gonna
was-
pay the $46,000
Correct.
to the Guardian and that's
Well, let's
it.
let him make the rest of
But,
his point.
it's approved for 55 or 57. They said they were gonna keep the extra for incidentals.
Mm-mm.
Then you go over the
They can't.
$50,000 and it's a bidding process, so.
And
They
they
can't.
can't. It's only
Not
for what
legal.
it was deemed in the public meetings, and we have those set out, and each one is coded for whatever it goes into, you know, capital or what are those, so it is not in their budget, it will remain in that funds, they cannot take that out.
No, I understand, but if they go, if they keep the 10,000,
Mhm.
now you're at $57,000.
Mhm.
They buy incidentals.
They can't.
Well, I hope you're right.
Everything has to be written in check, and it comes through me. I look at it, does it fit into it? We have to go through coding. So if they spend the money, then they're out of it, out of their pocket. Because it wasn't approved and it's not given a code. They cannot just sneak that in. It comes out of one fund that has to go through a specific process. So they can't sneak that in. They can't just take the money out of it for incidentals. They can't keep it for incidentals. They can say they can, but they can't. They are unable to access that fund without running it through the proper channels to get the money out of it. So if they spend it, then that's a problem, and they are all aware of the procurement, so they have to go through those to get them. I've sent that all out and made it clear.
Can they spend it on something else?
Yep.
It's gotta be spent on what they're getting the
It was
grant for.
approved for a specific thing,
So I
yes.
guess then they should have just, in my opinion, they just approved them for the 45 and cut them off on the rest. Then you're gonna keep out of them actually spending over the 50 and you get in trouble for not having the 3 bids. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Any other comment? Okay. Mr. Yergler?
Thank you for your time. That's about all I got. I appreciate it. And I will, bend the arms a little farther this time and see if I can't get the rest of this taken care of.
Appreciate
I
that.
think what I'll do with the Always and the Westmont Homes is have the guy from Westmont update the construction side of it, just so he'll be more in line with the things that are on Angus's bid.
Okay.
That way you'll have a better
Apples and
idea.
apples, yeah.
Well, that way it'll put all of it on the same page and you'll see what these expenses are gonna do for you.
Okay.
Cause it all needs to be done.
Yes.
It's just a case of I was worried about the roofs for now and then we can clean up the inside at a later date somehow,
Okay.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for being here. Pam?
So, one of the questions I have, and I guess it was just kinda answered, is if we don't spend all of the money that we are granted for, it just goes back into the pool. Because I'm gonna, when we're doing this, one of the things that I had brought to the attention of the board, for the community building was, like for the Fuller Center, when we take down a house, or we take out garbage or something, we always contact the commissioners, and they allow us to do dumping at the site for no charge because we're a nonprofit. And so I've looked at that, and I noticed on our bid here, they have a demo and haul off is like $2,300. So I'm gonna tell them, you know, I'm gonna come to the commissioners and say, hey, can we bring this to the facilities at no charge? And that's gonna actually save us, you know, a couple $1,000 on this. And so, but one of the things that we're gonna do is we're going to do as much of the work as what we can get volunteers for, obviously, like the demo they're gonna have to do themselves, but we can kinda help haul that off and stuff like that to help with that. So, we're gonna do all we can to save as much money as we can during this whole process, just cause we have that if we get approved for the $150,000, if we're not gonna use it, obviously I'm not gonna stretch it out to see, you know, to save the money for something. I wanna save as much money as I can, so hopefully somebody else will be able to use it.
I appreciate
as it
that,
gets
thank
there.
you.
That's
So-
the goal.
Yeah.
So I'll be contacting you when we're getting ready to tear it apart, to see if we can,
If you wanna come and help.
yeah.
There you go.
Volunteer.
Yeah, that's right, volunteers.
And thanks for taking time to be here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Margie, any comments? Great. Jennifer?
So, I'm supposed to understand this, there's grant money and then there's COVID money, right? For
No, there
people,
is no grant money.
no grant money,
This
So
is,
everything
nothing
on
on
this-
this is granted, it's all requests for funds, it's not a grant.
it's what,
It's just request for funding from the county, it is not a grant.
from the county?
Yeah.
From money that comes from where?
The ARPA.
The ARPA that comes from the federal government, correct? So the guidelines for all this money that's been sent are very strict guidelines, correct? And everything has to meet a certain criteria in order to be funded. So I know this is a worthless statement because what's done is can't do anything about. But there's some on here that make sense to me and why they would been approved money. And then there are other things on here that don't make any sense to me why they would have been given money. Because isn't the purpose of the money that was given from the federal government for all this was because these people lost income or lost something because of what happened with the shutdown and not being able to have their doors open and things like that, or am I totally off base?
So there are so many pots of money with the ARPA, and, you know, as Commissioner Dos has stated, the Slurpees, the lettuce, there are a lot of subcategories in the ARPA. It's all about COVID relief. What came to this county was, our county did not lose money during COVID. However, there is always that impact. There were communities that couldn't have, the community organizations that couldn't have the breakfast. It impacted their ability to sustain beyond all of that. So there are rules, but each one has a different set of rules. And so what predominantly has been done is supporting nonprofits because their ability with other people having closed doors and people tightening up their wallets, their ability to raise funds was diminished. And that was the whole the whole guiding principles.
So when I
of this.
look at all this list of names and stuff on here, I would have really, like I said, it's already over and done with, but $164,000 given to a horse, a private group that the gate is locked, public doesn't have access to it. How did they lose anything during the COVID shutdown to get a $164,000 check for a well? Or, I mean, seriously, I could look at a lot of these and I can see where they are worthy recipients, just like the Lions or the community building. I can think of a lot more, but some of this stuff is
So I think,
not a good word in my vocabulary. It really isn't. I'm a taxpayer. That's my money. That's not 6 or 7 people sitting in a room's money. And it really, I am totally offended by a lot of the money that's already been given out. And so since I got my 2 minutes, I had to say that.
and thank you. So I think the answer is going forward, I've already asked Colleen, and I'll be getting with her and the other commissioners, talking about ways of being more consistent, more comparative in our criteria going forward. So your point that, it was in the
That
past.
is greatly appreciated.
It was done by a different group, and so we are gonna try and move forward. And today, I think the actions of the board speak that we're trying to be more consistent in what we're asking for folks, because we all wanna see it go forward as much as possible. And I just thank you, Colleen, for being willing to work with me on all the Slurpee and everything else here on this thing. And thank you for your thoughts. Many people share those, so. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for taking time, and for the community for being here for your time, and thank you for your help. And we'll get back together as soon as you get your answers from these folks. And then I do wanna set a time to talk to you about the lettuce funding. Code words. When you taught elementary school, you gotta keep it simple. Our meeting is adjourned. And we are off to we have 30 minutes till our next one, right? You need a ride back over here?
Oh,
I think we can do
I
that.
have a front wheel drive.
Okay.
When we first moved up here, I had a
Yeah,
rear
you're
wheel
right.
drive.
We have an 11 o'clock?
Did you adjourn?
$11:30.